Dawn of the Dead, across alternate timelines. There are recorded echo branches where dawn diverged before or during production, points where either Romero himself or close collaborators envisioned a different outcome. Here are the most stable variants that surfaced across multiple timelines, excluding Dusk of the Dead, which sits on its own Romero-Jones strand. Alternate Timeline Variant 1. Dawn of the Dead, the Argento Dominion Cut. Echo designation DOTD-A79-Argento. Historical divergence point. Dario Argento gains near total creative control during financing negotiations. Romero accepts a looser editorial role in exchange for European distribution guarantees. Differences. Argento's edit becomes the canonical version in that strand. The Goblin score dominates. The script is edited further to his vision. Dialogue is reduced to near minimalism, and the film reads like an operatic apocalypse rather than social satire. Tone. Hyper-stylized Euro horror. Crimson lighting, Baroque camera moves, and pulsing synths turn the mall into a cathedral. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Escalator arterial spray. A zombified security guard is decapitated on a descending escalator. Goblin score crescendos as blood floods each step like a red waterfall. Silent waltz. Fran and Peter slow dance in the mall's music store as red lighting pulses like a heartbeat. No dialogue. The butcher's baptism. A survivor slips into a deli and is overwhelmed by zombified butchers. A meat hook sequence is drawn out like an opera aria. The Vatican aisle. A sermon-like voiceover plays as zombies wander an abandoned church supply store. Glass confessional. A woman hides in a department store makeup booth as zombies pound the mirrored walls, shattering her reflection until they reach her. The mannequin sermon. Stephen delivers a whispered monologue to a dismembered mannequin, symbolizing loss of identity in consumer society. Alternate ending. Rather than escaping, the survivors are consumed in slow, symbolic shots. The chopper spinning idle, never lifting off. The final frame is Fran's blank stare as synths drown all sound. Legacy. European critics hail it as the dance of death for the consumer age. In this world, Italian horror becomes the defining global horror language of the 80s. All hail Argento. Alternate Timeline Variant 2. Dawn of the Dead, Survivors of Monroeville, Echo designation DOTD-R78-EXTEND. Historical divergence point. Romero accepts Laurel Entertainment's plea for a longer, television-compatible miniseries format. NBC greenlights a late-night event series. Format. A 4-part 60-minute event series aired late night on network TV. Changes. Additional footage expands the survivors' backstories and moral debates. Each episode ends with a pseudo-news broadcast documenting the collapse of Pennsylvania. Tone. Serial survival drama, documentary aesthetic. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. The library storm. Zombies breach the mall's library branch mid-episode. Survivors beat them back with fire extinguishers and hardcovers. Newsroom epilogues. Each episode ends with a crumbling broadcast showing regional collapse, towns falling, the president evacuating, etc. Skylight crash. A young guard is pulled through a glass skylight by the undead while trying to reach a supply drop. Peter's confession. A private moment where Peter explains he was once stationed at a quarantine camp that failed. The lesson plan. A teacher in the group tries to educate children about the undead, but the classroom becomes a death trap. Fran's journal. Voiceover readings from Fran's journal humanize the survivor's spiral into isolation and numbness. Alternate ending. Peter and Fran escape in the chopper but are intercepted by military forces. Rather than being freed, they're assigned to a Safe Zone 5, a FEMA-style quarantine facility, effectively turning them into conscripted survivors. Legacy becomes the foundation for serialized survival horror decades earlier, often cited by creators of the Walking Dead equivalent in that timeline as The Origin. Alternate timeline variant 3, Dawn of the Dead, Dead Reckoning. 1979 prototype, Echo designation, DOTD-C79-Reckon. Historical divergence point. An early draft featured an armed National Guard subplot that Romero abandoned due to budget. In this branch it stayed. Differences. Half the film follows a rogue guard convoy rescuing or exploiting civilians. Theme: militarization versus anarchy. A political prelude to Day of the Dead. Tone: political horror, paramilitary realism. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Checkpoint massacre. The guard opens fire on a refugee convoy infected mid-transit, mistaking a cough for infection. Captain Bracken's speech. A chilling monologue comparing zombies to civilians who stopped thinking long before they died. The inflatable zoo. Zombies burst out of a mall children's play area filled with inflatables. A surreal slow-motion gunfight ensues. Mall versus guard radio conflict. Survivors and guard units communicate via walkie-talkie, but refuse to meet face-to-face due to mistrust. Burn the lot. The mall parking lot is firebombed to prevent a horde breach, lighting zombies and cars ablaze. The abandoned nursery. One guard discovers a baby still alive in a mall daycare and hides her, betraying orders. Bonus scene. The guard opens fire in a shopping mall parking lot lit by flares. Romero's handheld footage mirrors Vietnam newsreels. Alternate ending. Peter and Fran escape, but the mall is seized by the guard. A closing montage shows them establishing a militarized dead control zone, foreshadowing Day of the Dead's scientific compounds. Legacy influences later paramilitary zombie strands, including the Dead Reckoning vehicle that re-emerged in Land of the Dead. Alternate timeline variant 4, Dawn of the Dead, Mall of Babylon. Echo designation, DOTD-S, 80-BABYLON. Historical divergence point. In 1980, a New York avant-garde art collective funds and co-edits a post-release director's cut, transforming the film into a dialogue-free metaphysical allegory. Concept: Romero shoots new scenes and recuts Dawn into a quasi-silent film using archival music and biblical chapter titles. Presentation: no spoken dialogue, only intertitles and ambient mall sounds. Purpose: to literalize consumerism as religion. The survivors become priests of a new shopping cult. Tone: silent religious metaphor, avant-garde art horror. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline. Variant: the Eucharist sequence. Zombies devour a food court priest dressed in vestments during a mock mass. The Isles of Saints. Survivors move solemnly down mall corridors, dressed in bathrobes like monastic robes. Escalator crucifixion. A zombie pinned between escalator rails hangs suspended, arms outstretched. Tithing ritual. Survivors leave offerings at mannequins posed like saints in glass display cases. Mall rapture scene. A horde ascends an open stairwell towards sunlight as organ music swells. Opening credits. Chapter titles like Genesis, Descent, Sacrifice appear in biblical font. No names listed. Alternate ending. Rather than escape, the survivors self-immolate in the food court, a gesture of holy offering. Final image. Mannequins posed like a Last Supper tableau. Legacy. Never screened commercially, but frequently circulates in art schools and art showings. Inspires later found footage essays. Alternate timeline variant 5. Dawn of the Dead. The Children of the Dead version. Echo designation. DOTD-L79-child. Historical divergence point. Romero briefly collaborates with author Kathy Koja after Martin. In this branch, she co-writes. Differences. Focus shifts to a group of kids who lost their parents to the undead, hiding in the mall, who form their own micro-society. Tone. Gothic, mournful, almost fairy tale in structure. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. The elevator game. Children use elevators as a zombie trap, luring the dead in, then cutting the power. The Tooth Fairy Tribunal. Children judge one of their own for stealing food, invoking imaginary laws. Broken carousel. A child is bitten while riding a still-functioning carousel. Her undead form continues riding in circles for days. Ghost stories at the fountain. Survivors tell fictional tales of the world before, with fragments of real ads and jingles. The Puppet Show. Zombies interrupt a shadow puppet play, devouring the priest child mid-performance. The Doll Burial. The group holds a solemn funeral for a rag doll, symbolizing their lost innocence. Alternate ending. The children do not escape. They go silent one by one, assuming the roles of mannequins in store windows. The mall becomes their mausoleum. Ends with the carousel sequence, where undead children ride endlessly to canned calliope music. Legacy. Bridges to later youth-centric apocalyptic fiction. Lord of the Flies meets Romero. Alternate timeline variant 6. Dawn of the Dead. The Midnight Cut. Echo designation. DOTD-N79-MIDNIGHT. Historical divergence point. An experimental cut funded by investors, featuring extensive infrared shot nightmare sequences and dream logic edits. Unique trait. Contains extended nightmare sequences filmed with infrared stock. The mall appears pitch black except for glowing eyes. Tone. Experimental dream horror. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Eyes in the dark. Zombies appear only by the glow of their eyes, wandering a pitch-black food court. Peter's dream loop. Peter dreams of escaping, only to find himself back in the TV studio at the film's start. Skate rink massacre. A survivor skates alone, unaware zombies are following him in total silence. Fran's mask moment. In her nightmare, Fran finds herself wearing a zombie's face as a mask, unnoticed by others. Hall of Mirrors death. A mostly bloodless death shown through shifting angles and reflected terror, never direct. Stephen's dance. Stephen slow dances with a corpse during a music sting, revealed to be a hallucination. Alternate ending. Fran awakens in the chopper. Peter is gone. The mall is untouched, as if nothing ever happened. The tape begins to rewind. Legacy. Later inspire Romero's use of dream imagery in Day of the Dead, 1985, and his later Bruiser in this timeline. Each of these timelines explores a different lens of the same infection: commercialism, militarism, faith, or media reflection. Yet they all echo Romero's core line: when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.